This week on Worldview, the US election campaign takes a dramatic and deadly turn with Trump and his new vice president choice surging in the polls after the assassination attempt on him and pressure building on President Biden to step aside for another candidate. What are the major issues for American voters, and what will Decision 2024 in the United States mean for India? Hello and welcome to Worldview at The Hindu with me, Suhasini Heather. Now this week we're really looking at the turmoil in America. With less than 4 months to election day, it seems nothing is certain, not even who the final candidate lineup will be. So first, to the shocking assassination attempt on former US President Donald Trump as he was giving a speech in Pennsylvania. Pumping his fist as he was taken away from the stage, Trump was recast by his followers as an American hero, and that saw a further bump in his ratings. Trump is the third US president to have been injured in an assassination attempt. 4 presidents have been killed in the past. There's a history of political violence there.
Just absolutely blood all over the place. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly.
The second, Trump then announced his vice presidential candidate, and that was a bit of a surprise. It was J.D. Vance, author of the Hillbilly Elegies, and we've spoken about that book here on Worldview in the past because it really gave a look in 2016 of Trump's win amongst the American heartland. Vance is married to Usha Chilkuri, daughter of Indian immigrants, so that's caused some amount of buzz in India as well. He used to be a never-Trumper. He's now a US Senator who endorsed Trump wholeheartedly at the Republican National Convention, or RNC, this week.
They call me cowboy. I'm a singer of black. Throw a fist in the air. Let me see where you're at. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. I say Trump, Trump.
Finally then, Trump was formally nominated at the RNC. He accepted with a message of unity, but that included a few swipes at the Biden administration as well. Now, across the battlefield, the Democrats and President Joe Biden have had compounding problems with the campaign. First, a disastrous Biden-Trump debate, which really sparked concerns about Biden's frail health and his grip on issues, even amongst his supporters, something Biden did try to dispel over the next few weeks. This was followed by criticism over the Trump assassination bid and faulty security. He was even blamed for instigating the assassin, who was actually a registered Republican who had donated to Democrat causes in the past. Here's what Biden said in a special address to the nation.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence, or any violence for that matter. An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation, everything. It's not who we are as a nation. It's not America. And we cannot allow this to happen. Unity is the most elusive goal of all, but nothing is important than that right now, unity.
And then just after that, President Biden was hit by COVID. He had to quarantine right when he should have been out there campaigning. So take a look at the latest polls, and I look at the Real Clear Politics website because it really does give you the averages. It gives you all the latest polls. And as you scroll through this, you can see that really it is all red, with Trump up between 2 to 6 points at least. So that's going to mean something in the elections. And if Trump is up and Biden is down, the question now is Biden also out. The triple whammy really has convinced many senior Democrats to push Biden to somehow step aside from the candidature. Now, this could happen quite quickly, simply because it's been building up for a while and it's still not too late for the Democrats to announce a new candidate. Who could take over? It could either be Vice President Kamala Harris, or there could be an open convention to select the new team, the president and the vice president choice. And really that could happen anytime up to the Democrat National Convention, the DNC, which is August 19th to 22nd in Chicago. So let's just pause to take a look at what's concerning American voters right now. What are the big issues? And these are all really polarizing issues. The first is inflation and unemployment. America is actually seeing good economic numbers, but because of inflation and a sense of unemployment not necessarily being felt amongst people. The second is immigration. The third is the access to abortion, reproductive rights. Of course, Republicans against that. The fourth, gun violence and gun rights, a very polarizing issue. The fifth, climate change and energy. We'll tell you a bit about that in just a bit. The sixth, the handling of Israel and the bombardment of Gaza. The seventh, Russia and Ukraine, how much to support the Ukraine war now. The eighth would be trade and tariffs, but particularly how to deal with China. The ninth, taxes, and the 10th, crime figures. Now, these are the issues that various surveys have found are weighing with the American voter right now. What out of them would cause an impact on India? Of those 10 issues, 5 have foreign policy implications, and those are of interest to India. The first, Trump's promise of a crackdown on immigrant numbers and illegal aliens, closing the borders, deportations, mass deportations, all likely to be of concern in India to Indians and as a result to the government as well. There's also always concern that violence that accompanies anti-immigrant speech of the kind we saw during President Trump's last tenure, 2016 to 2020, also spurs violence. So that is one concern. Second, that Biden pushed for green energy, funding India's renewable transition, a big part of India's goals for climate change. Whereas Trump, on the other hand, he walked out of the Paris Accords last time around. He actually walked out of commitments to India on aid. He will push instead away from the renewable energy push. He will push instead for much more oil being pumped out in America. In his words, drill, baby, drill. This is what he said. Then you get to the issue of Israel and Gaza, and Trump will probably pay less heed to issues like civilian casualties of Palestinians, but he may push Israel more for a deal, for a ceasefire, including with Saudi Arabia, as he has in the past, and get much tougher on Iran. India, of course, will be watching closely to see whoever wins the election, what they can do to bring peace and perhaps actualize the long-delayed project of IMEC, the India-Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. The third issue, Biden is committed to funding Ukraine for as long as it takes in that war. The Biden administration has certainly taken a very stern view of India-Russia ties, particularly Prime Minister Modi's Moscow visit. We spoke about that last week. And a Trump win will be a big relief on that for New Delhi, especially given the criticism from no less than the US ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti, in Delhi last week, where he said about India, there really is no such thing as strategic autonomy in a conflict. Fifth, on China, Trump policy is likely to be much tougher on China, something India will want when it comes to trade and tariffs, but perhaps not as hard on Taiwan and Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. In general, Trumpists are never for much more engagement. They always want partners to work much harder on dealing with various challenges across the world. Judging by the comments of the vice president nominee, J.D. Vance as well, it does look as if the Trump relationship with China is still a work in progress. Remember, Trump revived the Quad, but then Biden was the one that raised its profile. Now, it is India's turn this year. In fact, it was India's turn in 2024 to host the Quad Summit next. So New Delhi will be very keen to see whoever is the new president visiting India soon, whether it's before the US elections or after that. They will like to see some movement on Quad. Of course, from Mr. Trump's RNC speech, there was no mention of India, whether that's a good thing or not. There are 3 other issues that India will watch very closely. The first is on human rights. Trump certainly not expected to push India on human rights issues the way the Biden administration has on issues like religious freedom as well. Although Trump is likely to be more intrusive on the issue of India's cutting things like FCRA licenses to Christian charities that do form his base. The second area India will be watching closely is what the new administration does on the Panun case. While the trial will go on regardless of who is in power, it's a Department of Justice trial, it will be possible that a Trump administration will go easier on the public messaging over transnational repression than the Biden administration has. And the third issue being watched closely is, remember, this was a big thing, a big announcement after Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US, the state visit in 2023, is on transfer of technology. Biden committed to transferring technology to India without strings attached, whereas Trump might want to extract more assurances, impose costs to the deal, as he has done in the past. Remember, he even threatened sanctions over India's oil imports from Iran, something the Modi government eventually accepted, acceded to, and cancelled its imports of Iranian oil. So what's worldview's take? The next few months will probably see much more turmoil in US elections at a time that India-US relationship is seeing a slump of sorts. That isn't necessarily good news. But no matter who wins the elections, there's ample opportunity to pick up ties, given that New Delhi has really dealt well with both the Trump administration as well as the Biden one. As a result, India's new ambassadorial choice, Vinay Quatra, has both the experience, but he also has his task cut out. All eyes will be on whether there will be a new contender to deal with from the Democrats, of course, and what their track record on foreign policy and on India, ties with India says. So let's get you some reading recommendations. I'll give you first a few books on Trump and Biden. Some of these I think I've never spoken about before. One is called The Last Politician, Inside Joe Biden's White House and the Struggle for America's Future by Franklin Foer. Now, this is an interesting book because it's actually an empathetic look at Biden's term, but it ends up causing quite a lot of concern about another term for him in office. Then there's a book called The Fight of His Life, Inside Joe Biden's White House by Chris Whipple, very interesting. There's a trilogy by the famous Bob Woodward. The first three, in fact, are called Fear, Rage, and then Peril, all looking at basically the Trump administration, but also the transition to the Biden administration. The third book is not yet out, should be interesting, called All in the Family, The Trumps and How We Got This Way by Fred C. Trump III. He's a nephew of Donald Trump. And this is not a positive biography. It should have some very interesting details, though. There's The Strategy of Denial, American Defense in an Age of Great Power Conflict. This is by Elbridge Colby. And why this is important is it's somebody who's a strategist, supposed to be close to President Trump, and certainly reflects a lot of their thinking on how a Trump administration would turn its attention towards China. A book called The Internationalist, The Fight to Restore American Foreign Policy After Trump. This is by Alexander Ward, and of course it's about Biden's efforts. Then books on India-US ties, and I've spoken about these before. There's Open Embrace, India-US Ties in a Divided World by Verghese George, my colleague at The Hindu. Friends with Benefits, the India-US Story by Seema Sirohi, and A Matter of Trust, India-US Relations from Truman to Trump by Meenakshi Ahmed. So you have all your reading cut out as well, and we'll keep you posted. That's all we have time for here on Worldview from the team. Thanks for watching.